Hello and welcome to Conversations with Cheryl, a podcast where women can be seen, heard, validated, and supported. Simulcast YouTube, Instagram, and Anchor FM. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Conversations with Cheryl, a podcast where we want women of color to be seen, heard, and visualized. And today, on our episode number 1, we are going to talk with Miss Erin Patrice. Listen, this lady is so outstanding. She does so many different things. We were just talking offline about how both of us are a lot alike. We do most of our stuff by ourselves, but we're trying to really change the world. She is a conversationalist. And some of the conversations that she's had, some of the ones that I've seen, have really been the ones that intrigue you, that make you think. And in this time, I think it's necessary for us to have those conversations. So what I want to do is let Erin Patrice go ahead and introduce herself to you and tell us a little bit about what she does.
Hey, okay. Well, thanks. I want to thank you for having me here, of course, and sharing space. This is really needed. And so I really appreciate you for that. So I'm Erin Patrice. I am the creator and founder of the Breaking Bread Village. And the Breaking Bread Village, really in short, is opportunity for us to create spaces, to have connections, to make connections, and also create community. Because once we talk to each other and we learn from each other and about each other, we naturally want to connect in different ways. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
And you know what? That's key, because I think that's one of the things that we don't do enough of. We don't communicate with one another. I think that a lot of the divide that we see right now is because nobody wants to have a conversation. And if we do, we want to do it in 140 characters and call it a day, instead of sitting down and actually having a dialogue and talking about our feelings and talking about, what we think about the issues that we're dealing with. And we don't really try to get to know each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually actively listen, right? And not talk at each other or come into it with this idea that once I share my opinion, I will change that person's mind. And I think that's what happens a lot. We come in it with this like agenda to create people into what we want them to be, and it just isn't practical. So yeah. So actually sharing space and listening and valuing people exactly where they are.
Yeah, and that's true, because I know a lot of people that I talk to, they're in the room, and sometimes the conversations are being had, but they're formulating their response as opposed to actually listening and hearing what the other individual is saying. So they want to change your mind. They don't care really about what your answer is or what you're really thinking. They want to just come in and change your mind so that you're on board with what they want, as opposed to trying to come to a happy medium, and maybe even sometimes agreeing to disagree.
Yes, it is. It's like this, back when we used to do like tag wrestling, and
Yeah.
it's this thing where people just be like this the whole time, ready to be tagged in their mind to be able to argue with the person and make their point, and debate. And so while the person is talking, you're just waiting for them to take that one little breath, you know what I'm saying, to jump
Hmm.
in and give your input when really you're not listening to what they're saying or trying to like really absorb or receive it. So
Yeah. So how did you come to the conclusion about the Breaking Bread Village? What was that journey like for you?
sure. So 2020, I mean, I just say that and that's enough, right?
Hmm.
But 2020 was a hard year for all of us. And no matter where you sit politically or environmentally or whatever, it was really a hard year. I mean, we had political stuff going on. We had a global pandemic going on, and people were debating about health measures and how what that looked like for them and what they felt was safe and productive. We had social justice stuff going on. I mean, that was the year of George Floyd and everything that happened with that. So it was a lot of stuff going on all at one time. And
Right.
I think that people just kind of imploded. I mean, I think that people, it was just a lot. And so for me, sitting back and watching everyone really argue and debate and go through all this stuff, I'm like, you know what, we need to have a space where we can talk collectively and to just kind of share what we think. And what's interesting is that I really was listening to people and reading what people were saying, in comments and stuff like that, and everybody thought they were right, no matter what side they were. I mean, everybody thought they were
Yeah.
right, and the other
Yeah.
person was almost like the Antichrist. I mean, quite honestly, it really got just that crazy. I mean, there were couples that split up
Yeah.
due to who they were going to vote for president. There were families that were not welcome, parts of the family that were not welcome to family functions because of, what they felt about social justice. So it just was crazy. So that's really what sparked it for me. I said, you know what, instead of complaining about it, I'm going to try to ignite change and do something in my small part of the world and just have dialogue. So
You know what? I'm sitting here thinking about that. You're right. 2020 was a tough year. It was a tough year. And, a lot of the things that I heard and read and saw were people, again, like you said, talking at each other. Nobody was really doing or saying anything that would come up with a solution. It's like everybody was a part of the problem, but nobody was a part of the solution. And I think everybody felt that it was almost like a heaviness, just everywhere you went, just the heaviness, And I think a lot of people struggled emotionally. A lot of people struggled mentally as a result of that because it was something that we had never seen before. Um, and I think we're still in a space where we're trying to battle back from that and trying to get into some spaces where we I don't think we want to go back. A lot of people say that, oh, I wish we could go back. I don't think we want to do that, but I think that what we should be trying to do is get into a better place, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
and it's not easy. It's difficult because you you struggle. And how they,
yeah,
how they say the struggle is real. You struggle with coming out of, from some people, depression, coming out of this I call it just a funk,
yeah.
that you've been in for like 2 years.
Yeah. It's interesting too because I agree with all of that. And what's interesting is that people are still trying to navigate with these new realities because I know for myself, I'll give a personal, take on it. During the year 2020, I found out that people that I thought, were I was close with and I thought I knew them, I found out things that they felt, right? About those different things that I discussed that took place during 2020. When I found some of this stuff out, I was like, wow, maybe I don't know them. You know what I'm saying? Like there were people that my children had been at their homes when they were younger, and I trusted them to take care of my children. That I found out had different undertones of, maybe racism or
Mm-hmm.
different preconceived, assumptions, and it just was like, oh wow. So I had to take a pause, right, and really reassess some things. So I think even with that, a lot of us are still navigating through these new realities, right? These new spaces and really trying to figure out, okay, who do I connect with in this new space? And it's just a real thing, right? I mean, life shifts and we have to shift with it. But I think that really was loud in 2020 of some things that you realize that people felt and you just didn't know because nobody talks about that kind of stuff, right? A lot of times you don't ask somebody what they, their political, you know, where they stand politically, or you don't ask people what they feel about certain things because that kind of stuff doesn't come up in everyday conversation. So in 2020, a lot of people felt empowered and emboldened or whatever to
Yeah.
share because we all felt like we had to like draw this line in the sand, right? And declare what side of things we, align with. So I think with that too, that was something that we still are just navigating through.
Well, it's because a lot of times, those kinds of subjects tend to be taboo. You didn't talk about them because you didn't want to step on anybody's toes, and you kind of just kind of wiggle your way through the best way that you can. And
Sure.
you when you are interacting with others, you try to do so in a manner that will not be offensive or in a way that will not cause a harm or cause disruption. But I think now we all realize that maybe disruption is kind of what we need because, like you said, we're dealing with individuals that we think we know, but until again, what we're talking about, conversations, until you have that conversation and have some dialogue, you really don't know them as well as you think you do, and it's unfortunate, but I do believe that it's something that had to happen. I believe that it was important that this occurred, so that now we can get through some of those difficult questions and some of those difficult topics that we do need to address, and can kind of see what side everybody falls on. And again, not to, it doesn't necessarily mean that you totally disconnect, but you may need to move differently, in those times when you're with those individuals. So I believe that it was very important for it to happen the way that it did. I believe that it happened for a reason. And I think that now that we're talking more and touching bases on some things that may be a little difficult, at least we're talking. I think that's
Yeah.
key.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I mean, we have to learn how to talk about stuff, right? Because this stuff
Mhm.
is real to us, and real, it makes the world go round. So we have to learn how to communicate and share these differences because they're there. And so no, I definitely love that. I mean, I don't want us to ever have to go through a global pandemic. I mean, who would
Right,
love that?
right.
But there's always something good that comes out of something bad. So
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So let's switch gears just a little bit.
sure.
If you had to tell us a little bit about your life purpose, or if you had to summarize what you feel like your life purpose is, what would that be? What does
Sure.
that
So
look like?
yeah, so I always call myself a wildflower. I always have felt that I was different. I thought different. I kind of moved different. And when I was younger, didn't quite understand where I fit in because I was so different. And people make sure they let you know that you're different, right?
Yeah,
So even if
yeah.
you have that question in your mind, uh, people will solidify it for you, right? And validate that question. So anyway, for me, I guess, my life purpose is to connect with other wildflowers, right? And let them know that it's okay to be that way. And it's okay for us to celebrate our differences. Just really in short, growing up, it was really a struggle for me I mean, I was adopted. I was, like I said, very different. I was more right brain than left brain, right? And people around me were more left brain and had this idea of what life should look like. And
Mm,
for me, it was always so different. I'm like, well, I don't want to do that, right? I don't want to do that. So it was a struggle trying to find that voice to say I don't want to do that, and then also not feel like a disappointment, right?
mm,
So with that, I've always been on this journey to give people that permission, right? To say yes to yourself. Because what I found was that when I always say be your yes, I always say be your yes, be your yes. And that's because, growing up, and not just in like home, but just period, like my life. I mean, you think about I'm 43 years old, which is not that old, but 20 years ago, I mean, there were certain things you just couldn't say, you couldn't do, you had to kind of operate in a certain way, right? And so think about 40 years ago, 50 years ago, things were just very kind of designed for us. And so anyway, when I tell people to be your yes, is that, for me, my whole life, people told me no. No, you
mm,
can't do that. No, you shouldn't do that. No, you shouldn't say that. And so I was constantly looking for this validation from others because they told me no. So I wanted to eventually hear them say yes. And what I realized was that they may never say yes, right?
right,
They may
right.
never give me that permission. So I had to give myself permission to be exactly what I felt comfortable in being. So that's my mission, is to help other people give themselves that permission, and to say yes and be their own yes. So
You know what? That is so important. I talk to so many women, including myself, that experience some of the same types of things. It's like, I know that this is really where my heart is. This is where my passion is. This, from the very core of my being, this is what I want to do. But everybody else is saying, no, go do that over there. Don't do this because of XYZ. You need to, you'd be better. And it's so difficult. And it gets to a point where you're almost a fraud in your own life because you are living up to these outside expectations that have nothing to do with who you really are. And I'd say probably up until about maybe 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, if and maybe 15, more like 15, is when I really kind of started living out some of those things that Cheryl wanted to do, some of those things that Cheryl felt
yeah,
passionate
we
about,
wait we waste so much time of our lives. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Doing the things that everybody else says that you should be doing. And the other thing that I recognize is that as a result of that, many other women or many other people that needed what I had, which was part of my purpose, missed out on that also for a long time because I was not living up to what it was that I should actually be doing. And that's unfortunate. That's actually kind of sad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, yes, and you could get really sad thinking about that, and I try to every day just tell myself that, okay, you're here now, right? Because you do reflect and you think back and it's like, wow, I wasted so much time
Yeah.
trying to, get this job. And what's interesting is that and my mom last night we were all together, she actually shared some stories about me kind of being a rebellious child when I was younger and in classrooms and stuff like that. And so I've always questioned, I've always kind of agitated in a sense of, I don't think that's right. I think we need to do this or I think this, so I've always done that. But even in doing it, it was an act of rebellion because I still wanted their approval. Does that
Right.
make sense? You know
Yeah,
what I mean? It's like
absolutely.
I'm still being myself, but I also knew I was going to get in trouble. I knew that it was instead of just saying, this is me, right? This is what I feel. It was still an act of rebellion. So it still came with this sense of like a failure, disappointment, even while I'm being myself. So I had to take that part out of it and say, you know what? No, it's not. This is just me and I'm different. So that's why I'm so welcoming to people who are different because I know what it feels like to not be welcomed in. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's true. A lot of us struggle with living out, being our authentic self because sometimes it does look different. Sometimes it does sound different. I know some of the women that I coach. I have one in particular that just popped into my head automatically. She a lot of times she tends to be a little louder than everybody else. She tends to be a little more flamboyant than everybody else. And I consistently, tell her don't ever stop that. Don't ever
yeah,
lose that because that's who you are. You shouldn't have to, if you're in with a tribe or with a group of people that don't understand that or think that you're whatever, then that's not those not your people. You need to go find some more people. That's the problem.
right,
Don't try
right.
to insert yourself into a place where people cannot celebrate who you are authentically. And we do that a lot, especially as women. We see something over here or what people are doing over here, and we want to insert ourselves into that particular group of people, only to find out that they don't accept us or they don't appreciate who we are, and then we're upset about that. But I always tell people you don't do that. That just means that that's not where you're supposed to be. So, and at the end of the day, sometimes maybe what you need to do is create the space that you need to be in. It's not always meant for you to fit in to something that someone else created. Perhaps you need to create the space. And then once you do that, once you show up as your authentic self, then other people that are like you are going to gravitate towards you automatically because they appreciate who you are and the fact that you're being exactly who you were created to be.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. Yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
definitely
So
agree.
I know that you have had some difficult times in the past, like many of us, and I was wondering if you would be willing to share how perhaps you overcame a significant challenge in your own life.
Sure. I mean, we only have 30 minutes, so I'll just
Yeah, yeah, right, right. Yeah, I know.
but
To the end of the day or end of the year, actually.
yes. So yeah, it was a lot of things. And again, I feel like for me, I got into different situations in my life because I was looking for that validation. I mean, I think that a lot of times, especially as women, if you don't feel like you're loved or you don't feel like, someone cares about you, you look for it in some wrong places.
Mhm.
And, so I was, in a relationship that ended up being, having some violence in it and different things like that. And, but originally I thought that that was love, right? I thought
Right.
that if somebody wants you all to their self or if someone is very possessive over you, that's love. And I was like, oh my God, he loves
Yeah.
me. When
Yeah.
really, it was not healthy. And I'm sure I played a part in it too. I mean, when I first met this person, I was 16 years old.
Mhm.
And so, I'm still learning myself and growing. So I say all that to say, that really helped me a lot once I got out of that because I will share that I moved from Cincinnati to Midland, Michigan, and it was very foreign to me, this, community, the culture, and all that good stuff. And so that was something. And mind you, I was young then still, and I moved here with 4 young children that I had to be present for and a parent for, even though I was going through my own, right, my own stuff. About to, file for a divorce and all this stuff and blah
Right.
blah. And I'm in my early 20s filing for a divorce. And growing up, as you know, in the church, that was always like kind of frowned upon. And it was this idea that once you're married, you stay married. So I
Mm-hmm.
was being conflicted with that, and being in a new setting. And uh I remember one day I was sharing with my son the other day. I said, because we were talking about different stuff, and I told him, I said, I had a mental breakdown, basically a nervous breakdown. I didn't even know what that was. I didn't know what it meant
Right.
when I went through it. I just remember I started crying and could not stop crying. I mean, well, just crying and crying. I'm like, what is? And I couldn't control my
Yeah.
emotion
Yeah.
to where I ended up having to call 911 myself, because I'm like, I don't know where my mind is right now, and I want my children to be safe. And long story short, they took me to the hospital, and they basically just had me calm down. They said, you just, have like almost like a panic attack. I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
what that was because I had never experienced it before. And basically just said, I was overwhelmed with everything going on, blah, blah, blah. And I remember then, because they wanted to give me some medication, right? Because they think you're, losing it, right? And I remember, we went and got the prescription filled, and I just remember standing in the mirror, looked in the mirror, and I looked at these pills, and I remember I opened them up and flushed them down the toilet, and I said, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, no, this is something that I need to. And that was when I realized that I needed to walk through this, be honest with myself,
Mm-hmm.
and really do some shadow work and really understand what all I had been going through, and be honest that this
Mm-hmm.
was some traumatic stuff, and I needed to
Right.
be honest about that.
Right.
And once I did that, that's when my life started to change. So
People really don't understand the importance of introspection and reflection, and even having even having those tough conversations with yourself.
yeah,
People don't understand, and how freeing that can be. For me, as I'm doing that, I love to journal. I love to
yeah,
journal. So
yeah,
I will, ask those questions, write those things down, write the answers down. But until you get honest with yourself, your life is never going to be different and never going to change. And also, because I went through a very similar situation, I did not initially understand how important it was for me to get to a place where I could forgive him.
yeah,
And I remember thinking to myself, as much as I wanted to talk bad about him to my sons and things like that, I had to recognize that that wasn't good either, for a couple of
mm,
reasons. One, what does that say about me and my ability to choose? That's number one. And then number two, his blood was running through their veins just as much as mine was. And that was a tough thing to
oh,
even
yeah,
work within your head, saying this person did this to me and this is where I am. Some of the things that I eventually had to say out loud and verbalize, I ended up writing them in books and things like that. But just getting to the realization that this is what's necessary if your
yeah.
life is going to change, and if your life is going to be better, and if you're going to come up out of this depression or whatever it is, or breakdown or whatever it is that you're going through.
Yeah, well, because it happened, right? And that's the thing, is that I really struggle with that, because it was this idea to not only protect my children but protect him, right? And not really, because what does it serve to just badmouth, right?
Right.
But what I had to realize was that this was a real experience for me. Like I said, it started. I was 16 years old. I mean, I'm supposed to be going to proms and homecomings, and I'm pregnant, and dealing. It was just a lot, right? And when you don't have an outlet to really discuss it, and you're really, all of it is being internalized, you
Yeah.
have to eventually get it out. And so I did the same thing. I mean, I did a lot of writing. I did a lot of poetry. That was my way of kind of verbalizing the, stuff that was going on within myself. But eventually I did start talking about it, because it has nothing to do, because he's forgiven. I mean, I have nothing ill to say about him, but that part of my life did happen, and a lot of it I had blocked out. And the more and more I did work within myself, stuff started coming to light. There's things that my children remember that I didn't even remember because I had blocked it out. And so with that said, I said, yes, I want to protect the person, but I also have to be true to myself, right? I have to heal myself, and the only way for me to do that is to talk about what took place in a way where it's not like, weaponized, but
Mhm.
just it's my story, it's a
Yeah,
part of my story. So
yeah. How important were your children, since we're talking about children, to your journey and to where you've come now?
oh, they were everything. I mean, my children, they were what kept me going, in the sense that I wanted to show them that they could do anything. Life is not determined, by what you've gone through or what people say about you, that you can make it. And so you have to understand too, is that when my children were young, people told me flat out, "Oh, you ruined your life. You had children young, you won't make it." I mean, people had some really strong, and I mean, when I think about now, I mean, these are people that, like, you look up to, people,
Yeah.
elders in the church, people that
Yeah.
thought that whatever, but
Well,
so
I'm a
they
PK. I'm a preacher's kid, so you can imagine what that was like on my end, right?
oh yes, yes, I've always wanted to sit down with a few PKs and just talk about that experience, because I mean, I wasn't, and I know what I went through. I couldn't imagine the stuff that y'all had to hold. But yeah, they were everything, because I wanted to not allow what people basically put on us to become a reality. So for me, it was like, no, I mean, even right now, I mean, all the work that I do is for them to be able to have a legacy, to feel proud about, who their mother is. So yeah, a lot of it, I mean, yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of the force that kept me going, because I didn't want what people said to become reality.
Oh my gosh. So you have to be my sister from another mister. I'm just telling you. I'm sitting here listening and I'm like, goodness, that sounds exactly like me.
Yes, yeah,
Only difference,
yeah,
you had 4 boys, I had two. That's the only difference.
yes, yes, yeah. Once you have a couple, it's all those numbers about the same.
Right, right,
Yes,
right. So listen,
yeah.
it has been a pleasure talking to you. Uh, before we go, I just any last gems, words of wisdom that you could share with our listeners, with our audience.
Yeah, just be your yes. I mean, I know I said that already, but that's really important for me, because I don't think people realize that how much we look for other people to give us a yes, right? And if doors aren't open, create them. Like,
Yeah,
you have to create it. You have to say, I want this bad enough. I'm determined enough to create the space that I want. And then also, you know, show grace. We are all we are all growing out here. We're all learning, so we have to be very gracious with each other, and also be consistent. If you say that you want to do something, put the work in, and don't do it just for likes and follows. Just consistently do it. If nobody likes your post, if nobody likes your just keep going, because trust me, it will pay off. So
yeah.
yeah.
Feel like I think the scripture says your gifts will make room for you, right?
I'm a firm believer now. I tell people all the time, my gifts will make room, and they have made room. And
Yeah,
I can write a book about that, how things just literally open up. But you also have to do the work. You have to do
yeah,
the work, because people will invest in you when they see that you've invested in yourself. So if you
absolutely.
see value in you, somebody will as well. So
So what's coming up for Aaron Patrice? What you got going on that we can be a part of?
oh yeah, well, I mean, they can always follow us, on Facebook, Instagram, the Breaking Bread Village. But we have some live shows coming up. We have a 6-show series coming up. It'll start next month, and it'll go all the way till January of 2024. And it's called Including You series. And essentially, what it is, we're gonna build on top of each other. So we're gonna talk about stuff like religion, big picture, honesty, societal expectations, because a lot of times what people expect out of you is what either helps you or hinders you sometimes, right? Having that. So yeah, so they can tune in there. All our shows are on our website as well, tbbv.org, where people can check out what we're doing and what we have going on. So
Well, yeah, I know that I'm going to be following you, and just let me know when you're ready to come down to Houston to have one of those conversations so we can take
hey,
that up.
no, listen, no, this is real talk. I was talking to my aunt about when we come down. We plan on coming down either this summer or next summer. But I was telling her, I mean, I want to have a Breaking Bread Village show in Houston when I come. I'm gonna talk about some things. So yeah, we're gonna make that happen. That's for real. So I just was talking to my iPad about that literally the other day. So yeah,
Well, that'll be
it's in the
great. That'll be
works.
great.
Yes,
Absolutely, absolutely.
yes.
So, everybody, thank you. This is Erin Patrice. We've been talking to her today about having conversations. She is an awesome conversationalist, as you can see. This has been wonderful being here with you today. Thank you so much for joining me. We want to thank our listening audience for joining us as well. Episode 2, is going to be with Lady K, Katina Collins. She's going to be talking about what it looks like to find yourself after 50. Can you believe that? Find yourself after 50,
Yes.
right? And some of us did that. So you want to stay tuned and listen to us every Friday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time for Conversations with Cheryl. I'm your host, Cheryl Lacey Donovan, and it's been real. Thank you. Have a great day.